Chapter 6 Email. When people talk, listen completely. Most people never listen. Ernest Hemingway. Note, email function only exists in VED build. Azblink system can be applied on emails applications mainly in the following areas: 1. To function as network filter to tag spam emails or save extra copy of emails. 2. To act as reverse proxy to access email server via HTTP. 3. To act as email server. Configuring the system as an email server might be less complicated than the other deployment scenarios. We start with the preparation for setting up an email server and introduce the applications around an email server. To have a valid email server, it needs fixed public IP address and valid domain name. At the beginning of this manual, we have emphasized it already. And it is also important to configure MX record in DNS server. We will assume the work associating with fixed public IP address, domain name, and MX record in DNS server are done in advance. With those action items ready, we turn to the email server itself. The email server can be described in the following diagram. It is involved with several network protocols. From server to server, SMTP is used. To fetch emails from server on clients, POP3 or IMAP can be used. From client to send out emails via server, SMTP is used. This is the simplest scenario. A firewall with NAT can be sitting in front of email server by using port forwarding to forward the corresponding port traffic to email server. In this scenario, fixed public IP address will be set in the firewall machine. An email server behind the firewall will be using private IP address in LAN. It can be done with the information we provide in the previous sections in firewall. The rest of the work is to configure email server itself. Another scenario is to separate spam tagging from email server by putting spam tagging or filtering into another machine as indicated in the following diagram. We will introduce how to use Azblink Enterprise Border Controller to implement this scenario. Email domain name and host name setting. We assume your machine is using fixed public IP address, and with the MX record in the DNS server associated with your domain, for example, zzzzz.com, you can just set fields at email basic domain host, for example domain name specific for sending mail, zzzzz.com, host name specific for sending mail, mail.zzzzz.com, and press submit button by leaving sending mail via relay unchecked as indicated in the following screen snapshot. Then, the configuration for email server is done. In the example above, mail.zzzzz.com shall be in MX record and it is with IP address in DNS server setting as well. The email server scenario, as we mentioned earlier, can be done once those parameters are set. The rest of the work items are creating user accounts, helping out each user with his/her email client setting. The following is the screen snapshot of Microsoft Windows email client Outlook Express. You can fill in the IP address of the email server as POP3 server and SMTP server and the account information. Check the box My server requires authentication and press settings for SMTP server setting for authentication. Let's back to email server setting. If this host is using some other names to receive emails, you can adjust the setting in the following field in email basic domain host, host name, S, or domain names to be used to receive emails, but remember, those user accounts are shared by those host name, S, or domain name, S, you specified here. For example, user at zzzzz.com is the same as user at mail.zzzzz.com as well as user at haha.com in this server. If zzzzz.com, mail.zzzzz.com, and haha.com are filled together in this field. Furthermore, sometimes you send an email by typing wrong email account, the email server will bounce an email back and say that the user does not exist on that server. This is a good feature, but some email spammers are using this feature with fake sender address to bounce emails elsewhere. So, you might feel the network is slow due to those bounced emails. To avoid bouncing emails back, you need to click the checkbox reject the requests for delivering to unknown local user without sending bounced emails. The machine will check the local user list at the first moment when emails are not received completely and reject the emails right away without letting it stay in the input buffer. Since the emails are not completely received, it will not bounce back the sender. Virus scan and spam mail tagging. Please notice that this email server will perform spam mail tagging and virus scan if you turn on those options. Those actions will be performed before emails are saved to each user's folder. If virus is detected, that email's content will be replaced by virus XXX found when virus scan is turned on. Furthermore, if spam mail tagging is turned on, in the header portion on email protocol of each email, it will have something similar to the following added in mail header: X spam asterisk level, X spam no, score equals 1.2 required equals 5.0 tests equals advance underscore fee underscore 1 all, status, HTML underscore message subject. If the spam scores obtained by the email is too high, it is set as 5.0 internally at this moment. The content will be replaced with the major reasons why this email is identified as spammed email by attaching its original message at the end. Each user can use some filtering program on some mail client to move those suspected junk mails to other folders. If you want spam mails being deleted directly on the mail server, you should just check the option discard those emails being tagged as spam such that those emails will not be shown to the end users. And turning on the option discard those emails being tagged as spam will not trigger spam mail tagging automatically. You have to explicitly turn on spam mail tagging. Mail group alias management. Add email basic group alias. We can have email group alias by selecting a group of people's email addresses into that group alias. When you want to send emails to a group of people, it is normal that you add those emails accounts into the recipient list one by one. But what would the other people also want to send an email to this group of people? He/she might not know each member of the group, but a message must be delivered to this group of people and this list might be used over and over again. In this case, you can use mail alias by put a list of email accounts associating with this alias. And you can send emails to this alias so that each member in the list under that alias will receive emails. For example, if you create an alias Shanghai in your mail server known as domain name yourdomain.com. Each user on this mail server is with the email address of the following format, user@udomain.com. For each normal user, the alias Shanghai includes a list of email address. But how do you send email to the group Shanghai? You just treat it like other email address, Shanghai@yourdomain.com, group alias. Then, when you send to Shanghai@yourdomain.com, each member in that list will receive that email. However, you have to notice that there is no such user Shanghai in the system. Thus, you do not need to create a user account Shanghai in the server. Creating a mail alias is enough to serve that purpose. Webmail client access. Webmail is a kind of email client to read emails via HTTP so that you can use web browser to read emails. Our webmail interface can be accessed via http://ip_address 8081/webmail/. We will introduce it later if you want to use the same web email interface as proxy to read emails from the email server that is not sitting on the same machine as webmail via email advanced webmail proxy. Email server access control. As we mentioned earlier, when an account is created, basically that account is allowed to use SMTP, POP3, and IMAP to access the system. You can block the users to use SMTP, POP3, or IMAP by selecting them into each forbidden list respectively. Thus, you can have scenarios that some of the users can only receive emails but cannot send out emails by using SMTP. The function to add a user into the forbidden lists of SMTP, POP3, and IMAP can be found at Email Basic Account Control. Please notice that the user authentication system, login account, in our webmail is binding with IMAP. When you put a user into forbidden list of IMAP, that user is not allowed to access webmail as well. Private spam folders. Sometimes you might wish those spam emails can be placed into a separate folder. Theoretically, the best place to perform this task is on each individual's email client program because each individual can set his/her own filter by classifying emails into different folders. On server side, we have this mechanism. However, before using it, you need to understand the following constraints. It is necessary to turn on spam tagging. For those users are with spam folder, those emails classified as spam will be placed into a folder spam. But that folder only can be seen by using IMAP. The protocol POP3 only allows you to fetch emails on the incoming folder, it does not have the capability to fetch other folders. Private spam folder can be activated via Email Basic Private Spam Folder.